Hi everyone, welcome back to a new episode on All the Cool Kids Are Vegan podcast, and I've got a special guest with me on today's podcast. Her name is Amy. She's an actor here in Bombay and also a vegan activist, so immediately I had to connect with her and be like, let's do some vegan activism together. So I'm really excited to be with her on today's podcast, and we're doing something special. We're doing like a common vegan myth debunk session, which is really cool. I've never really done anything like that, but I'm really excited to just, as two vegan activists, we get a lot of, comments from people about veganism, tend to be repeated, so I feel like we all know kind of our answer on how to debunk them. So let's get into it. And do you want to give another further introduction about yourself, where you're from? Actually, I didn't mention that, so you can say where you're from.
So my name is Amy. I'm based now in Bombay. I'm an actor, I'm a businesswoman and a vegan activist.
Yeah.
I've now been vegan for 17 years, over that now.
Oh, I didn't even know that. 17 years?
And I'm still alive.
You haven't died of protein deficiency
I'm
yet.
waiting for that to happen. I've been vegan for quite a while, but I only became a vegan activist about a year ago. I just decided that I wanted to use whatever resources I have to educate people in a really fun and engaging way, in a non-threatening way, so that people don't feel like I'm telling them how to be or telling them they're wrong. It's more to challenge their viewpoints in a non-confrontational way. So I run my page in conjunction with Gen V, and we love to create this amazing content together and help to educate people.
Yeah, I think that's all. I feel like that's all it is. Like, people need to just know, right? They need to be educated, which I think is one of my main things as well, just informing people. And the best way to go about it is like in a calm, open way, and so that people are more receptive to you.
Absolutely.
So exactly.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm also happy to have you on today's podcast.
Thank you.
And let's get right into it. The first one, which is a common one, which is a really funny one, I think, is that if people say to us like, oh, but if everyone in the world were to go vegan, we'd be overrun by farm animals, because right now we have like, actually, what's the number? How many billion?
80 billion.
Yeah, farm animals, which is more than humans, right, in this planet, which is just ridiculous. So that would be like, okay, if everyone were to go vegan, then we'd be overrun by farm animals, and yeah, let's debunk this. I mean, it's completely not true, of course.
It's completely not true. I mean, it's kind of ludicrous. It's basic science that we only have so many 80 billion plus farm animals because we have bred them into existence.
Exactly.
And I think people think that if you just leave the animals, they're going to keep procreating, but it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Like, if we left them to their natural ways, they would be procreating far less.
Yeah, because
but
we breed
we
them.
manually, physically make the males ejaculate, take their sperm, and physically, forcefully impregnate the females to produce as many babies as are required to meet the demand. So it's basic supply and demand. Once the demand comes down, the supply will also increase.
Exactly.
And it's not like everyone will go vegan tomorrow. People will go vegan or plant-based over a period of time. All change takes
it'll be
time.
gradually.
So it'll be gradual. So naturally the supply and demand will also be gradual. And the way in which we breed animals will decrease. And as such, the number of animals will also decrease in a reasonable way.
Basically, there we have it. It's basically supply and demand, and if we decrease our demand, like, the supply will decrease. So in that way, like, we're not gonna, like you said, the whole world's not gonna turn vegan overnight. There's gonna be a gradual shift, and during that shift we can decrease the amount of like animals we breed into existence, and then eventually, there won't be this 80 billion land animals that we have now. So there's that one debunked. We're not going to be overrun by farm animals. Don't worry. Not going to happen. But we do hold that power as individuals, as individual consumers, to bring that supply down with our demand, basically.
Absolutely.
So we can all make a change as individuals.
Yeah.
The second one would be about the cows and the dairy industry. So people say to me like, oh, but cows need to be milked, so we might as well drink the milk instead of wasting it, which is, a bit of a, I don't think people realize that cows don't need to be milked unless they're not pregnant. So you want to take this?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's a crazy viewpoint that people have, and maybe that's just from a lack of education, but that's the same thing as saying that you have to milk humans, and if
just because it's theirs, right?
Breast.
Yeah, it's like we might as well milk them.
like biologically, it
It's
doesn't
so
make
crazy.
sense. Like
Yeah.
cows only produce milk
Yeah.
because we forcefully impregnate them.
Yeah.
We make them pregnant. We take their child away.
Yeah.
And then we take the milk that's designed for their child. That is the only reason they produce milk, which is why after about 6 months or whatever, whenever they stop lactating, they're forcefully
Being pregnant
impregnated
again. So
and this cycle continues until the cow can no longer stand anymore.
Yeah.
Normally a cow's lifespan is 20 years, but in the dairy industry it's 4 to 5 years.
Isn't that crazy?
And when they can no longer stand, then they're sent to slaughter. And it's like, it's insane for someone to say they have to be milked. We make them, we force them to be in a situation where they have to be milked.
Yeah. Yeah, we forced to impregnate.
And we inject them as well with all sorts of things to increase their milk production.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Because cows will naturally stop producing milk when they don't see their baby. So there is a chemical that they inject the cows with, and I was recently at a dairy farm in India, and I saw them injecting the buffaloes
No
with
way.
this stuff. And they do it to keep the milk flowing even when the child isn't there, and it increases the magnitude of the milk that's also being produced.
Wow, that is so crazy. You want to share a little bit about your experience at like an Indian dairy farm?
So at the Indian dairy farm, I was pretty not shocked, because at the end of the day, I know what happens. It's just weird to see it in person.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I saw all these little babies like tied up away from their mothers outside in the sun, obviously to like starve to death.
Yeah.
And what they do is like they let the baby drink its mother's milk for like for like a few minutes, right?
To get the milk there?
So that the cow thinks its mother is there. Its child.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
so it gets the milk production going, and then they take the baby away from the mom, tie the baby elsewhere.
I think I've seen those videos of them just like tearing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they take the milk. And so I saw that firsthand, and I was like, wow, like it's crazy.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was interesting is we were talking to the workers at the dairy farm, and they were telling us everything, like, because I was asking them, what happens to the males? Right?
Question.
What happens to the male calves? Like, obviously they're of no use in the dairy industry.
Yeah.
And everyone we asked had a very well-versed fake response.
Right.
Saying, the Hindi mein, of course.
Yeah.
They were saying, the cows, we let them free in the land and walk around, blah, blah.
Right.
And all of their responses were very curated. And later we found out from the tea salesman that, I don't want to say who, dairy representatives come and instruct people, like people who are not so educated, maybe, or not so well versed in media and stuff, around, as to what to say to ward people off.
Wow.
So that they never share like what really happens.
So messed up, right?
It's so messed up.
Like, it's such a, like, they know it's not supposed to be legally allowed what they do. Actually, like, it's actually so crazy.
It's crazy.
So they just tell you that they don't actually explicitly ever tell you that they're killed, basically.
No, they wouldn't. And I mean, it's tricky because in India, cows and buffaloes are treated very differently, or perceived to be treated very differently. Yeah. But cows still end up in the same fate that buffaloes do. It just happens under the radar.
Right, exactly.
Right. So, I mean, we've seen countless videos and we've heard from countless people that cows will end up getting sent for leather or meat production. India being one of the largest.
Exactly. India is
leather in the world. I mean, obviously they're coming from somewhere.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? When people say to me, "Oh no, India treats cows so well," I'm like, I'm sorry, but we are the biggest exporters of beef and leather.
Something's not adding up.
Something's not adding up. So there's a lot of underhanded stuff that does happen there. Agreements with police, political, whatever, that allows these things to happen. And buffaloes don't fall under any legal protection, so they bear the brunt of everything.
That is so interesting that in the Indian dairy industry, because definitely, like when I post content of the dairy industry on my own page, it's usually of the Western dairy industry, and then people will comment like, oh, but in India it's not that way, we treat them wholly, etc. But it's just about educating them that like that is the way in India, and it's actually even worse probably, because I know that in some states they don't allow cow slaughter, right? But like you said, these cows eventually do get slaughtered, so I think they have to travel like far distances.
They transport them.
Yeah, so sad. They have to go through so much like suffering on this journey as well to the slaughterhouse, which is like super hard ways. It's actually even worse for them, honestly, if that's even possible.
I think in India there's a misconception, and when people think of dairy, they think of it like, in the Gao, the cows are treated so beautifully,
like a family member.
Home. Exactly. Which I think makes up a very small portion of the reality.
Yeah.
But majority of the cows in India are in a commercial industrialized system.
Yeah.
And when they're in that system, they're not treated like individual cows. They're treated like products because they are. Yeah. Right? They're a number.
Yeah.
And so I think people need to realize there is a difference between the two. And if you are consuming dairy, you are supporting the mass slaughter of cows globally and in India.
And it's all about making them aware, because I think a lot of them don't realize that. They'll just like, oh, but if you're vegetarian, it's cruelty free because you're not actually eating meat, but it's like you're actually still responsible for that part of it. So to bring it back to the cows just need to be milked. Definitely not.
Definitely
if we don't make them pregnant, then they won't need to release their milk, but we want their milk, so we make them pregnant. It's actually just so crazy as a vegan now to realize about the dairy industry. Like, as non-vegan, you're like, oh yeah, it's normal, cows have milk, we do this. Yeah. But once you learn, and it took me turning vegan to actually learn about it, once you learn all that happens, like imagine if that whole thing were to happen with a dog, where you get a female dog and you impregnate the dog, take away the babies, kill the dogs, the puppies, take dog milk. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
I had a really weird conversation with a friend the other day. Yeah. And I was like, I was saying to them, if I was dating someone or a meat eater, right? Yeah. I would have, I would want to meet in the middle, in the sense that at least our home can be meat free. Yeah. And then if they go out, they can, if they want to have meat, fine. But like at the house, I would want it to be meat free. Yeah. Not that I would ever date a meat eater, but anyway, this is all hypothetical. Anyway, so, he was like, yeah, but I would never want to be in a house where I can't be myself. Like, I would never agree to that compromise. Wow. And I'm like, well, let me ask you this. If you were dating me and if I was a dog meat eater, okay,
nice one.
I wanted to put dog meat in the fridge, let's say a fresh Labrador, which I just got chopped up at the market, and I brought it into the fridge, would you be comfortable? And he was like, no way. Yeah. I'm like, but then what's the difference between the chopped up Labrador and the chopped up chicken, both who feel pain and suffering and happiness and joy? What's the difference? Yeah. And he was like, well, I don't know, I've just been always, I think there's a difference between dogs and cows and pigs. I'm like, but what? Yeah. Because the only difference is your perception, because that's how you've been culturally raised. Like, if I ask a Chinese person right now, or a Nagaland person right now, for them, eating dogs is
I know. It's so funny you say this. Just today I got a comment on my Instagram on a reel of pigs, and they were like, oh, but I have a pig and he's part of the family and it's normal to eat him. And I was like, imagine if you said the same thing about your dog, that like your dog is a part of the family and it's normal to eat it. Like, it's just
so weird.
It just doesn't make any sense. And they seem totally confident saying this, where it's like, oh, we have a pig in our house, in our farm, and it's totally fine to eat the pig when, because the pig is meat at the end of the day. So that's how they think. And
where do you draw the line with morals when you're culturally justifying anything? It's like the example you just said, where the person said, oh, we just do it in our family, pig, and then we eat it. Yeah. I'm like, imagine just flipping the conversation and being, let's say it's a cannibal, okay? And the cannibal, that's all they know. Yeah. Like, they're from a community that eat humans. It's normal. And you and me might find that shocking, who might be meat eaters, and then the cannibal thinks that what they're doing is ethically okay as well, because that's all they know, that's their culture.
Exactly.
So I think the moment you start to justify hurting other people as being a personal choice, and B, a cultural
It doesn't make sense.
It gets very confusing because, you know, it's culturally okay to rape your wife in certain states in the US. It's culturally okay to do so many fucked up things.
Yeah.
So where do you draw the line ethically?
Yeah.
For me, it's like a simple thing. It's like if my decision hurts another person or animal, then it should not happen. That should be the moral baseline for human existence.
I feel like that's amazing. Yeah, that's another thing people say is to you is like, oh, but veganism is a personal choice. Not veganism, like eating meat is my personal choice. And I really dislike that argument as well because, like you said, that personal choice harms others.
Yeah.
So it's just not...
That's like a pedophile saying, it's my personal choice to rape little kids.
It's ridiculous.
It is your personal choice, I guess. Like, to a meat eater's logic.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, it's all about making them realize that their personal choice does inflict harm. Maybe they just don't realize it. I don't know, but it's definitely I that's a hard one as well to deal with vegan activism. It's like, oh, but it's my personal choice. I had someone come up to me and say, oh, but I don't judge you for not eating meat. That's your personal choice. I'm like, but me not eating meat doesn't,
doesn't hurt anyone.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
Why would you judge someone being nice?
Yeah, it's true.
That's not like a fucking thing. I don't get it.
I know. I was really put off by
I'm
that.
not judging you for being a dickhead, but you're not judging me for being a nice person.
I know. Yeah, literally. I think as vegan activists, we deal with so much stuff like this. It's like, it's tiring. Another very common one is that but if you're vegan, you're still responsible for the killing of billions of insects and mice that get killed in crop production. And this is actually a pretty common one because they're like, oh, but you're vegan, so do you not care about the insects? Like, you should care about the insects. And like, yes, we do care about the insects, but we're living in a society now where this is the most, like, veganism is just reducing harm as much as we can, right? And this is how, at this point in time, how much as we can. We're not happy about the crop deaths, but it is happening still. And we also need to eat. But there's two parts to that argument, right? Do you want to talk a little bit about the two sides, which is about the fact about the crop production percentage that goes to humans and animals?
Look, people that say that so many insects, the small animals, die during crop production are missing the point that we feed most of the world's crops to animals. 75% actually of the world's crops are fed to animals. And animals only give us 2 to 6% of our actual calorie requirements and needs, right? So we're growing and using all these resources to make so many crops to give to so many animals that we have bred into existence, right? To then get a small amount of nutrients in return. Whereas we could just be growing less crops, using less land, using less water, and having the crops directly which give us all the nutrients we need. The same 20 amino acids are in plants. We could be getting it directly, not hurting animals, not breeding so many animals into existence, and not wasting so many plants to begin with.
Our food system is just so messed up. Like, with the fact that we require so much percentage of our land for these crops, and like, let's so little calories, it just doesn't make sense.
So, I mean, I think for people that want to make that statement, if you care about the insects and the small animals that are dying to make plants so much, then that's all the more reason not to eat meat.
Because you're responsible for less insect deaths.
Exactly. So by eating plants, you are using far less plants, less resources, less water, less land. You're having a far less impact on this earth. And it's not about being a purist. Being a human, we are existing in modern society. We are killing things. Like, you know, you walk outside, you kill so many bugs. You use a laptop. It's about existing in society, but trying to minimize our harm, not eliminate the harm, because then you would just have to kill yourself. That's the only reason, the only way to eliminate harm. So it's about how do we function, how do we live our lives, but to the least amount of harm that we can.
Exactly. So if you care about the insects, don't eat animals. Literally. So then another one is, but plants have feelings too. And the second people
I hear this all the time.
They're like, but how do you know that plants don't feel pain? And it's a crazy one.
It's a crazy one because it's like, firstly, science. Like, stuff I learned in like grade 5.
Like, where were you during that class? Like,
obviously, like, busy
missing.
No, but seriously, it's like, it's so basic. It's like, plants do not have a central nervous system.
Yeah.
And that is the very basic thing that you require in order to experience pain. We know that animals have a central nervous system. We know that we have a central nervous system. And so if you were to slit the throat of a human or slit the throat of an animal, their sensation of pain would be that of pain.
Yeah.
But if you were to do that to a plant, it wouldn't be the same because they don't have pain receptors.
Yes.
So I don't think people understand the difference. I think people get confused with stimuli versus pain receptors. And also they'll look up these random studies that might have been done by some like offbeat doctor in his like downstairs basement. And at the end of the day, my comment is, if it's not a peer-reviewed science, it's not in any way accurate about anything.
Good.
And secondly, my comment would be, if you truly believe that plants have feelings, then surely you should understand that you shouldn't eat meat to begin with, because most of the world's plants are fed to animals anyway. So by not eating animals, you are actually consuming far fewer plants. So it doesn't matter from what angle you look at it. If plants do have feelings or don't have feelings, it's irrelevant. It's very clear that you should just be plant-based and consume less plants.
Actually, exactly. It's so crazy. And whenever I hear that argument, I do try to say like, oh, but actually plants don't have a central system and they only respond to stimuli. But then if they respond back with like, actually, but how do you know if it maybe spiritually? And then I'm just like, okay, let's leave this argument.
See, when people go into like a spiritual thing, like, man, look,
stop talking to me right now.
You're sitting there and you're talking to me about your concerns over a carrot, but you're okay to put a knife in a pig.
It doesn't
like, are you for real?
Yeah, it's like, then it's just like, let's stop talking about this, because they're not even listening to the other side of the argument.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's do one last one. People say veganism is extreme, and that's I think I can have a one-liner for that, which should be like killing 800 billion land animals. That's extreme, right?
Absolutely. I think anyone that says that veganism is extreme is being really unfair, because I think that if you're a child that's born into a family and you are fed dead flesh of animals, are fed milk and dairy products that are full of antibiotics and contaminants and detergents and antibiotics, whatever, pus and cum, who knows what's in there, right? Who knows? Weird shit that's in stuff.
There was, pus in dairy.
There is pus,
and people don't realize this.
People don't realize.
Like, acne can disappear if you stop eating dairy.
100%. I don't think people, especially in India, milk is loaded with crap. And I don't think people realize. There was a test that was done with over 50,000 milk samples in India. And the test results had come back to prove that the milk contains so much detergents and antibiotics and soap and like all these like horrible things were in 50,000 random milk packets, and they took it to the dairy board and they took it to Amul and stuff. And basically Amul's response to that was, we need to see more samples before we can say anything on the matter. Why do you need more than 50,000?
That says enough, guys. That says enough. Their response was.
So I think anyone that says veganism is extreme is probably being quite misguided, because
for sure.
If you are making your child eat dead flesh and dairy and they have no other choice in the matter, you're also being extreme. Because you're not giving them the opportunity to choose. You are projecting your views onto that child. And your views, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter from how you look at it, are violent.
But it's funny that you say, because people don't realize that they have this view. They just think it's an invisible belief system, right? Carnism, where they think that like veganism is a belief system, but what they believe is also a belief system, that they believe it's okay to eat these type of milks from these type of animals, but not, eat meat from this type of animal. So it's like, that is a belief system.
So if eating meat is a belief system, and if not eating meat is a belief system, then if I have a child, I feel the more responsible thing for me to do as an adult
is the non-violent.
Is to choose the belief system that's not violent. So that at least my child growing up is not a part of a violent idea. And then when they get older, if they do decide, you know what, I do want to eat meat, I do want to be a part of this, they're making that choice on their own accord, rather than you forcing them your violent viewpoints.
And it's so funny that the children part is so important actually, because you see children that they love animals, first of all. They would never want to hurt their animals are their friends. So they can never imagine that what they're eating comes from like a violent place. Like they don't realize that, you know?
Exactly. It's like you would have it's like if you had a kid and you offered them oat milk versus cow milk, they don't know the fucking difference.
Yeah,
like,
literally.
They're just there to have a good time. Right? So it's like, why would you not offer them the kind one that you know is not hurting anyone?
For sure.
But then I think it loops back into people don't realize it's a belief system.
Yeah, 100%. They just think this is what they've been brought up with, so this is what the normal, and it's like the Matrix where the pill, red pill, blue pill works. Like, they've just been, what's the word for that? Indoctrinated with this view.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Well,
thank you so much for being on this podcast. And I think there's going to be more podcasts with you, which will be a lot of fun, because I think we share a lot of the same like experiences when it comes to vegan activism and stuff. So I think we can share a lot with that with other people on the podcast and stuff.
Absolutely.
Thank you. See you next time. Thank you guys for listening to All the Cool Kids Are Vegan podcast, and we'll see you next time. Bye.